If you were to say the words Baldur's Gate around me, my mind would instantly reach deep down and pull up some memories of a younger me playing hour after hour of Dark Alliance on PlayStation 2. This was the first PlayStation 2 game I saw in action at a demo at a local mall, and I remember seeing how the water would move and how it mesmerized me as a kid. Eventually, I got myself a PS2, a copy of Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, and after many playthroughs, I grew attached to the game, the story, the gameplay, and the name Baldur's Gate. Fast forward many years later, and we're now just a month or so away from the release of Baldur's Gate 3 on PS5. Of course, Dark Alliance and Baldur's Gate 3 are totally different games, but they have one thing in common. I fell for them both. While Xbox and PC gamers are enjoying their time in Starfield, the PlayStation audience will have Baldur's Gate 3 replacing the spot where Starfield would have been had Bethesda not been acquired by Xbox. As a result, for one reason or another, comparisons between these two behemoth RPGs have started to surface online, and I can't help but feel that I should not be surprised. To hell with the fact that these are two completely different types of RPGs. If you are a PlayStation gamer, your answer to Starfield is Baldur's Gate 3, or so you might think. See, the thing is, I'm afraid many of you out there may be biting off more than you can chew when considering adding Baldur's Gate 3 to your PS5's library. If you've never played the original Baldur's Gate games, or other titles like Pillars of Eternity, or the Divinity series, the truth of the matter is that you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. After spending some hours playing Baldur's Gate 3 since its official release on Steam, I can tell you that Baldur's Gate 3 is a stunning, intimidating, rewarding, flexible experience that offers way more than meets the eye. First, let's talk about the game's turn-based combat. In Baldur's Gate 3, once you engage in combat, you and your party members will take turns duking it out against creatures of all sorts. Within a character's turn, you're able to move around the arena and pick from a series of abilities unique to your character or party member's class and build. However, once that is done, you have the option to use a second action. Combat here can be challenging for the inexperienced and, more importantly, unprepared. Healing items were hard to come by. Healing spells can only be used a limited number of times before a long rest is needed to refresh their use. One wrong move can be very costly and end with you and your party being wiped. But unlike my experience in the Divinity games, the challenge in Baldur's Gate 3 hasn't felt unfair once. I've not felt that it was the game that beat me, but instead, it was me who beat me, if that makes any sense. Baldur's Gate 3's combat requires patience and thinking. Rushing from one fight to the next, not managing your actions, and blowing all of them in one fight can easily end up in disaster. Although the game may have a steep learning curve and long battles, the combat so far has never felt dull or boring. In fact, it's been a nice change, a cleansing of the palate, if you will, washing out the taste of the plethora of action RPGs out there. As far as the plot of the game, I'd be lying to you if I said that the overall plot is the thing that got me hooked to the game in the first place. Your character is imprisoned by mind flayers. They put a tiny little mind flayer squid in your eye and you embark on a journey to get it out of your head. That's about all I've gotten from the main story so far, and it's nothing to write home about, but also not an absolute throwaway. After playing through the game for a few hours and completing some of the side quests, something tells you that the stories told in these will be more memorable than that of the main plot of the game. This is a familiar sentiment since it is exactly what I experienced playing something like The Witcher 3, a decent main story completely outclassed by the stories told in the multitude of side quests that game had to offer. And if this turns out to be the case, which all signs point to yes for Baldur's Gate 3, then I don't necessarily think that this is a bad thing. Thankfully, one area where Baldur's Gate 3 does manage to surprise me is its cast of characters. I don't really enjoy saying that I find the characters in any game interesting because everyone and her mom will say that, or convincing, but for some reason I cannot put my mouse cursor on. I couldn't help but really invest time into learning more about some of the characters that have been presented to me so far. But it's not just the main or the supporting cast, it's also the NPCs. Talking to them felt normal here. In other games, talking to NPCs often feels like it's a chore. They're here because someone was paid to put them in there. In Baldur's Gate 3 so far, from what I've experienced, the NPCs are there, yes, because it was someone's job to put them there, but also because they actually belong where they are. The voice acting in the game has been top-notch thus far. For the writing, the dialogue is what I would expect from a Larian game. Very well written and very well acted out. I think where Baldur's Gate 3 falls short in its main story, it makes up for with the cast of characters that help deliver the stories this game has to tell. But the best story this game can, or rather cannot tell, may be its best story yet. Here's what I mean. Choices matter. You've never heard that one before. Not just in the sense of how you approach conversations, but also in how you do or do not approach quests. One decision can make things much more difficult than necessary, and on the opposite side of the spectrum, your decisions and approach can also make things much easier as well. One thing in particular that caught my attention here is the feeling of what if. What if I didn't save Halcyon? What if I did side with the evil druid chick? What if I did help the true souls? How different would the events of that segment of the game have been? Baldur's Gate 3, though not a traditional RPG by today's standards, is no doubt going to be one of the best RPGs of this year. The fact that this game is launching on PlayStation 5 is something to be excited for, and if you manage your expectations appropriately and truly can grasp what you're getting yourselves into, then you will be in for one hell of an experience that I personally cannot wait to play in its entirety. If you can afford the patience and the thought that this game requires, then I am confident you're going to walk away feeling the same.
I've been fine without the power. As powerful as Halsin might be able to remove your tadpole, but he couldn't. You're desperate to be rid of it. Understandable.